So what I'd like to do is do a quick review of both domains. Okay, everybody comfortable with BCP is? Business Continuity Plan. How about a DRP? Disaster Recovery Plan. And a DR, or disaster recovery, is part of the business continuity. So a lot of people will consider them separate, but the DR is part of the BC. Okay, you have your disaster recovery planning. It's a part of your business continuity planning. The DR is going to be your IT infrastructure. Your business continuity is the entire organization. Okay, back to the senior management. Everything has to be signed off by senior management or upper level management. It's their responsibility for the organization. They're the ones that are going to jail if you're in that industry segment, if things go wrong. So they're the ones that need to know, approve, and basically they are responsible for it. The BCP team needs to be representation from everybody within the organization, such as, of course, your HR, your PR, your legal. Basically the same type of people that are going to be on your incident response team. BIA. How would you do a BIA?
You got to get everybody together, get all the stakeholders together.
Yep, get stakeholders together, and then you can do either qualitative or quantitative. Basically, a risk assessment would be part of a BIA. So you try to find what threats there are, how it would impact the business, and what kind of countermeasures you have or what kind of backups you have in case the threat is realized. Everybody comfortable with quantitative versus qualitative? Awesome. Maximum tolerable downtime. Everybody comfortable with that? Is once you go past that, that's the point of no return. It's either the business or the asset that has the MDT is no longer viable. It's going to cost more to bring it back to life than it's worth. Good old ARO. Annual loss of, annual rate of occurrence. Then your ALE, which is analyzed loss expectancy. Everybody comfortable with the math there?
Once you correct the last.
Yes, once you correct that bottom one, so it's multiplication. People comes first, so you want to minimize life. For the test, that's always going to be the correct answer, is if anything's going to potentially disrupt life, don't do it, or protect against it. You may be in a scenario to where that is not the case, where data may be more valuable than life, but as far as the CISSP is concerned, life is definitely more valuable. It's harder to replace. Okay, know the difference between a hot site, a warm site, and a cold site. Okay, hot sites, within hours. Warm site within days, cold site within weeks. The warm site is usually set up, but they may not have the computer equipment. They may not have the ergonomic chairs. They may just have the basic ones where you have to replace. The cold site usually has nothing. It has the Havoc systems, but it does have the electricity. So you may have the T1 line just ready to go. You just need to flip the switch to turn it on, but everything's there, structural wise.
What would a mobile, like a mobile band like you just talking about, what would a mobile band be?
The command center would be a mobile hot site because that already has probably satellite communications or wireless. Some of the older trailers and the mobile units were actually cold sites. So they can get it as empty as soon as something happens. They put it on site and then they get everything up and running quickly. Even the tents are cold sites. Granted, depending on the organization you're with, you may get the tent up, a cold site, in hours, not weeks, yeah. But yeah, for the test, it's going to be the hours, days, weeks, and then hours is everything's already there. And in reality, if you do your testing frequently, it may be seconds, if not minutes. Because if the one site goes down, all the data then instantly gets rerouted from your location let's say after 90-second timeout or whatnot, or latency, and then all of a sudden starts traveling to the secondary location. So, but all again, it's level of effort. And the more level of effort you're going to spend, the more time and money is also going to be spent. Okay, approval, top level management and down, C levels. Testing. There's the checklist, which is, yes, it's good on paper. There's the structured walkthrough. It's like, not only is it good on paper, these are the things we do. Are we missing anything? Simulated tests. Pretends that fires happen, so go to a fire drill. Floods happened, pandemics happened. Parallel test. You bring the system up running the same as you are, but you don't actually cut the line. And on full interruption test, you cut the line, which hopefully doesn't mean you actually go and cut the line. But for example, in a lot of areas, and it was funny, we were just talking about backhoes being the biggest enemy of the internet. Well, some of my family is in a rural area in Colorado, near Grand Junction. Somebody actually did a backhoe to their fiber line and cut down their cable, their internet, and their entire phone systems. So that was one where there should probably, as far as a geographic location, make it to where they're all not in the same pipe, because that's not good. Okay, phases of the plan, something to memorize. You need the project, it starts. You do your BIA first, after the project has been basically okayed by upper management. You develop the strategy, plan development, implementation, and then testing and maintenance. Testing is basically you've implemented it, you've deployed it, and you've tested it. Any things that you find that can be improved, then you change it. Okay, laws and investigations. Good to know why the crimes are crimes. Good basic espionage, stealing, script kiddies, DOSs. Know what a script kiddie is? Dedicated attacker, cracker, state-sponsored, grudge, financial, business, fun. So these are basically some of the motivations behind it. So the biggest issue is you need to know what kind of things motivate people, which of course is going to be money, the good old grudge, disgruntled employees, or political reasons. So anybody know what hacktivism is? Hacktivism. It's basically a political attack or political hack, all in the name of activism. And the majority of people in that, the hacking community, when they name things, it's relatively close. They steal things from other places. But yeah, the hacktivism is you deface a website or you try to take down a system, all in the name for political reason. And competitive intelligence, so the business and government, same scenario. Know what salami attacks are. Taking a small amount of money from each account each month or each transaction. There's data diddling, which is separate from salami, which is modifying data before it entered into a computer or as soon as it left. So data diddling would be the same thing as a variable manipulation attack on a website or e-shoplifting. And then good old dumpster diving. The act of dumpster diving would not be illegal, but trespassing into an organization, if they have fenced areas, definitely illegal. On the physical side, fencing will not prevent somebody from breaking into the organization, but it can deter somebody from breaking in. For example, if you had your good old PIDA system, there's still probably ways they can get around it, and technically, there's all kinds of prison shows where people are digging their ways underneath the fence. So there's ways to bypass security mechanisms, but if somebody's determined to get in there, they will get in there. But if it's a basic trespasser or more an advanced attack, a lot of times they'll just try to go to the next lowest hanging fruit. Know what a red box is? It's a telecommunications fraud device, or telephony fraud. When it comes down to it is that it's trying to get free phone calls. PBX fraud. PBXs are definitely in your telephony space. So when it talks about PBX fraud, it could be in laws and ethics. It could actually be in the telecommunications domain. know these, also known as SOX, Sarbanes-Oxley, which is going to be from the Security Exchange Commission, and it strictly deals with publicly traded organizations. So when it comes down to it, you need your HIPAA, your GLBA, Sarbanes-Oxley, the ECPA, which is the Electronic Communications Privacy Act. This is that Wiretap Act that I was mentioning. And this right here, with the Electronic Communications Privacy Act, it has it to where there's the SCA, which is Stored Communications Act. Stored communications means if it's stored, then it's up to the owner of the device. They can get to it whatever they want to, whatnot. If it's not stored, if it's in transit, then you have to have a search warrant or permission to the owner of the data, not the device. No, this one, Privacy Act. Basically, it's a little bit more strict than the US. That's the primary thing to know. Monitoring, basically any way to monitor an employee. Biggest thing to come out of this is that banners, a great way to tell employees that they are being monitored. Agreements, whenever they get hired onto the job, another good way, saying that you accept the responsibility that we will be monitoring you at any given time or whatnot, and the banner says the same thing. By moving forward on this item, you do accept the capability or possibility you will be monitored. Know the types of laws, civil, criminal versus administrative. Civil, of course, burden of proof is a lot less than criminal. And the reason is because with criminal you can actually forfeit your life. Then a lot of things in the information security sector is going to be your good old administrative. So your Sarbanes-Oxley, HIPAA, GLBA. But when it comes down to the other ones, like the Electronic Communications Privacy Act, those are probably going to be your federal. Or not just federal, but criminal as well. Federal laws, dealing with computer crimes at the federal level. You have your Electronic Communications Act, Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, and Electronic Espionage Act. And this one's a very important one to know as well, the Electronic Espionage Act, because that means if somebody steals trade secrets or misappropriation of trade secrets, then they can get in trouble, especially if they make a profit. If they sell things such as trade secrets to foreign entities, then it almost doubles the fine and doubles the potential jail time. A trade secret is basically the proprietary information that is essential for the company's survival. Copyright protects original works of authorship, and know the difference between copyright and trademark. Trademark is going to be the symbol that is associated with an organization or product, which could be word, name, symbol, sound, shape, color. And then patent. That allows the owner to basically make sure that a specific invention cannot be used by other individuals. Okay, DMCA. Know that one. It basically protects anything that has been secured. So the act of compiling code is a method to secure the code. G8, international organization, basically built to stop cybercrime. Okay, evidence, something that can be used in court to push a judge or jury into seeing if it's true or fact that an entity did do something they did or did not have the authority to do. Know your evidence. It must be material, competent, and relevant. And then also these types. The best, secondary, direct. Conclusive, circumstantial, corroborative. Opinion, hearsay, and real. So unfortunately, just know all of them, all the different types. Because again, the laws, ethics, investigation is definitely a very important part of information security, so you know how far you're allowed to go type scenario. And that's one big issue, especially if you're like a C-level exec like CISO or information security manager. Unfortunately, you have to know all the rules and regulations within your industry because you need to know what you have to do to protect your organization from getting sideswiped. But it is your responsibility to know if Sarbanes-Oxley applies to you, and then what you have to do for Sarbanes-Oxley to keep your organization compliant. But it is not your responsibility, for example, like as a CISO, to be able to interpret the laws. That comes out to a lawyer. So a lot of times you'll actually have it to where when dealing with this, you have to deal with a lawyer because they're going to be telling you what to look for and then how far you can go or what you're going to be tied by. I know some situations have it to where individuals will have an on-staff lawyer, and before they can do any investigation, they have to tell the lawyer that this is what's happening, and then the lawyer has to come back to them and say, okay, this is the scope that you can look for. Know the business record exception to hearsay. Know what a response team is, and the primary goal of the response team is to stop the damage to the organization and then gather evidence. And a lot of times, containing and preventing is just unplugging the system or taking it off the network. Collecting evidence, it's going to be your same type of things. Whenever you think about this on computer side, just think about your good old CSI show, if anybody watches that. It's to where you photograph the area, you gather the evidence, and then you document everything. And that goes back to your chain of custody. Different areas that can be hidden files, streams, slack space. May not go into that big a detail, but as far as the real world, that's where the tougher cases are going to be hiding things. Definitely know the difference between enticement and entrapment. Enticement is that you're putting something there and just letting the bad guys see it and then attack it, which would be a honeypot. And then entrapment is putting a honeypot out on the internet and then telling a community of hackers that you don't think they have the skill enough to hack it, and if they did, they get a free iPod.
Kind of like what you're doing with your ISP.
Yeah. Oh, and that's the thing with the wiretap. The other caveat to the Wiretap Act, or that Electronic Communications Privacy Act, is that service providers are not held accountable for the same thing as that law enforcement or anybody else would be, because they are held accountable for the quote-unquote quality of service of the line. So during basic maintenance or administration of the line, they can be doing packet sniffing or monitoring all your data, phone calls, communications or whatnot, and if during that process they see anything illegal, it is their responsibility to then tell law enforcement. So it's one thing that it does give ISPs the capability to do packet sniffing on everything you do. In reality, not permanently and not consistently, because then it becomes targeting, but if they're doing it because they want to make sure that the line is stable, especially if you complain about slow throughput, then they may be sniffing what you're doing on the wire just to see why it's slow or what you're doing to possibly cause it to be slow. Okay, definitely understand due care versus due diligence, and also follow the prudent person rule. Yeah. And by doing that, you pretty much save yourself from lots of liability issues. Okay, sets of ethics. Memorize. Know this group and this group. So, any other questions?